Hello, my name is Vicky DeRosa, and today we're with Lisa Zorn, a registered dietitian, and Stephanie Venetsky, a student who is entering the French Culinary Institute this December. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
Today I thought it would be interesting to actually talk about stories of the week. We were spending a few minutes outside talking about the even some of the stories that we just heard about in the last couple days. So my favorite, which I heard about yesterday, which I just want to bring up and see what you ladies think about it, is the Twinkie story that I just heard about last night. What's your opinion on the Twinkie story, Lisa?
Well, I didn't hear about it, but what were the details of it?
I think Stephanie, did you hear? You can actually give us some of the details.
It was actually a headline on CNN along with,
Wow.
whatever's going on in the Middle East, and it was right there with it. This professor at the University of Kansas, I think.
That's right.
And he is a professor of nutrition at the university, and as a experiment, especially to demonstrate the results to his students, he decreased his calorie intake by a third, or by a third of what it should be. So I think for his age and height, it should have been 2,600 calories, and he pared it down to 1,800, I think. And he just ate Twinkies, packaged powdered donuts and cakes. He drank soda, I think Mountain Dew, they said specifically, and he said he had some vegetables, but really only like in front of his kids to not set a bad example.
So how long was the diet?
2 months, and in 2 months he lost 27 pounds. And his BMI before the experiment was considered overweight, and then afterwards it was normal weight, normal BMI. But
the point is, just so we make it clear that a Twinkie diet is not the appropriate diet.
Right.
Thank God we have a registered dietitian here to clarify. But
Exactly.
So apparently, the diet was Twinkies, donuts. He reduced his calories. But Lisa, just talk for a second on what that kind of a diet long term can do.
Right. Well, I mean, bottom line is he lost weight because of the calorie. He decreased his calories, and a calorie is a calorie is a calorie, and that is really how we maintain, lose, or gain weight. But obviously, there's a lot of things that are missing in his diet. Antioxidants, vitamins. I mean, if he did that long term, which 2 months is actually a pretty long time, it's definitely going to be. I'm pretty sure would be deficient in certain nutrients, and also. Sugar depletes us of the B vitamins, and the B vitamins give us energy. So I'm sure that, but the funny thing is that, you can do that with anything. You could eat a candy bar for breakfast, a candy bar for lunch, a candy bar for dinner, and if that's all you eat, you are going to lose weight. But that's not healthy, and it's not realistic, because anytime you omit an entire food group, it's not forever, it's not long term, and we should be doing things that are long-term.
So you might actually lose weight, but you're killing your immune system.
Right.
You're depleting your body of all sorts of necessary nutrients and vitamins.
Exactly.
So God only knows what kind of trouble your body's actually in after that weight loss.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm sure it was some kind of an experiment on his part, but it's not an experiment that anybody should do.
Absolutely not.
It was definitely like a la
it's temporary. It's a temporary fix, but it
Right.
can never be long term.
I think it was like Supersize Me,
Right.
these like concentrated amount of time to do this
It
extreme
was-
thing, and people like that. People, it's entertaining, and he had a Facebook page. They said, and he would update it with pictures of his
This
progress.
probably was total entertainment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
people.
Just like
Yeah.
the Supersize Me.
Exactly. And he has that whole other show about things that he does in 30 days, and he totally, immerses himself in these extreme situation. So
You mean the professor?
no, this
Oh,
this,
the
this
super
guy.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the super? What ended up happening with the supersize? I mean, I remember seeing that movie, but
Disgusting.
didn't he get very sick?
Yes.
Yes, all of his
His organs shut
his cholesterol,
I mean, that's not- no,
his
I'm not
bad
laughing, that's
cholesterol
not
went
funny.
up, his blood sugars went up. Yeah, he came into it very healthy. He was like a healthy, didn't have any issues with
His girlfriend's a vegan chef, and it
Yeah.
was like all he ate. Yeah.
and he was sick. He had, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, high body fat.
And so, what ended up happening? I mean, I haven't followed it. What has he recovered? Is he back to his?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure it was just an experiment and a documentary.
The end of the movie said that it took him like 3 times as long to get back to just a normal weight, and then to like then go past, then to get like, actually healthy and to build muscle again, and
Right.
but yeah, I mean those vivid images of
I know. Did
him
you see
throwing
it?
up.
It
Oh
was
yeah,
just
I've watched it multiple times because I find it that entertaining,
I know.
and it's funny because he did it himself.
Since we're talking with you about this, I'm curious, Stephanie. You're young. You're how 21,
22.
22, and it's so inspiring to actually see a young person who is obviously very concerned about health. How can you talk a little bit about your situation? Have you always been this healthy? Is it new? Is it just tell me a little bit about that.
I was raised that way. Both my parents are in the health professions, not directly, but they both worked in hospitals, and I don't know why my dad is so healthy. He was raised, he grew up in the 50s in Brooklyn, and his parents, cooked like traditional American food, white bread, canned vegetables, he said he hated it. But yeah, I mean, there was just there was no question. Like, it wasn't a matter of like, you can have this or that. There was just like, there's only going to be one thing in the house. And there was no gray area. It was like, you do not go to McDonald's. It was never sometimes or a treat. It was just like, it's not, we don't, I mean, it might sound almost elitist to some people, and I've hesitated to even talk about it with certain people because it sounds, snobbish or, but I don't think it's something to judge. It's just, it's a personal choice, and, I don't think it's at all, I think it's obvious that a lot of these corporations are just evil. Like, I know we're not, I don't know.
Go back, please.
I mean, I just, how they target kids. I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious that.
So how are you're going to the French Culinary Institute, and one of the things that, and actually, Lisa, this is important for you to comment on too. I am constantly confronted with this. People say things to me like, oh, you probably don't eat any heavy cream, and you probably don't eat ice cream, and you probably don't eat bread. Those things are not the culprits, right? Those, I mean, what I mostly discuss and what is very serious and kind of near and dear to my heart are the chemicals, the preservatives and additives in food. Those are what I find unhealthy. So here's a dietitian. Fat is not going to kill us. A little bit of cream in the sauce, or a little bit of ice cream as a treat, right? I mean, what's your opinion on those kinds of things?
Well, we need fat in the diet, obviously, and you want to limit your saturated fat. It should be less than 10% of your total calories in a day.
Wait, explain that for a second, because I actually just got a question at the studio this morning. Someone called and asked me to explain that. So just talk a little bit about saturated fat.
Well, saturated fat is the fat that clogs your arteries. So you can have some, and the ADA recommends that it should be 10% or less. 10% of your fat intake should be no more than 10% for saturated fat.
Okay.
Then the rest should come from mono and polyunsaturated fats. Your monos are going to be, your olive oil, your canola oil, and your polyunsaturated would be your safflower oil. So what I think the sense in your saying is that you would rather have the real ice cream, you know, like there's one company that just came out with a 5-ingredient, you know, where it's just cream and everything is you know, it isn't fat-free, so it doesn't have preservatives in it, it doesn't have chemicals in it. From that standpoint, you feel as though once in a while that's okay because you would rather have real ice cream.
I do. I
Right.
actually do. Do
That's
you agree
what you
with
mean.
that? And
Yes.
that is what I feel. I don't.
As long as you limit it to a cup, you know, or half a cup, which is a serving size.
Half a cup is. I have a lot of servings. No,
Yes,
I'm just kidding.
unfortunately, 4 ounces is a serving of ice cream. That's the sad part.
But I run into people who, you know, say things like, "Oh, I can't have regular ice cream. I have to eat the fat-free."
right.
Those to me are the serious culprits in our diet.
That's a red flag when you see something that says fat-free or, you know, half the calories, especially when it's a brand that traditionally has full-fat stuff. You know, most of the time, unfortunately, they're cutting the fat, but they're adding things like
Right.
Olestra, which has these horrifying little disclaimers that, you know, if they were in the big letters, you would never even,
Right.
you know, think twice about buying them.
Well, it's like I spoke to a woman on the phone yesterday who called into the studio, and I wanted to touch, and it's a sad story. Her husband has cancer that keeps coming back, and he's been treated for it now quite a few years. I brought up aspartame, and I said, please check your cabinets for anything with aspartame. She actually said to me, we don't eat anything like that. And I said, I think you should check absolutely everything. Do you know what she ended up looking at, which she was shocked at? He drinks Metamucil every day, sugar-free Metamucil. She checked the back of it. There's aspartame in sugar-free Metamucil. So it's hidden in places that, you know, low sugar or no sugar yogurts, you know, it's hidden everywhere. And those kinds of things, like I realize a little fat in our diet may put on a few pounds, but it's the aspartame, chemicals, additives, MSG, all those things that are hidden in the foods that we eat that actually will cause serious illnesses and diseases.
Long term.
You know, long term that sometimes we can't recover from. So.
There's a reason why, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's a reason why the fat-free trend didn't last. I remember when I was little, you know, shopping with my parents, I remember specifically on 2nd Avenue, there was a store dedicated solely to fat-free products. It wasn't, they didn't make them, but they sold only things that were labeled fat-free. And I remember my dad looking at me and being like, you see that store? It's not going to last. He's like, fat equals flavor. If you have a piece of bread,
It's true.
and if you have a piece of butter separately, they don't really taste like anything. Together, you know, it's this like addictively delicious thing. And
My favorite thing is crunchy bread dipped in olive oil.
Oh yeah, olive oil is replacing butter in a lot of restaurants, not
Yes.
just, you know,
We're actually,
Mediterranean.
on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back in just a couple of seconds. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Hello again, and we're back with Stephanie and Lisa. Welcome, welcome back to the show.
Sure.
I think actually, Lisa, you wanted to bring up something before we took a break.
Yes, we were talking about creams and, you know, more whole food processing opposed to, you know, fat-free and chemicals. Now, so you're in the culinary school, French cooking. So what are they using for? What are the?
I mean, they
sauces?
don't hold back. I mean, one of the like main, you know, first things you learn is like confit, which is some type of meat, animal meat, like duck, traditionally cooked in its own fat. So that's, you know, but it's tradition, and, you know, and there's a reason why Europe I think they're catching up to us, but hasn't had an obesity epidemic like we have. So,
Because it's
you know,
small portions.
exactly.
It's
yeah.
the portions.
Mhm.
You know, it's funny, but see, again, like some people might consider that extremely unhealthy. A little bit of that is not going to kill us. I wanted to bring up we were talking about this earlier today. Can you talk about the story about, I can't believe I'm smiling. I just like saying lovebirds, but it's not such a funny story. Can you just, so that the audience can hear this story, it's a fascinating story, tell us again about the lovebirds?
Just to clarify, I worked for this family. I wasn't there when this happened, but basically they bought lovebirds, these two birds that come as a package because they kind of,
I didn't even know what lovebirds were.
It's this symbiotic relationship.
They're
apparently.
birds.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
very cute. They're little puffy, little dove-like birds. And one died suddenly out of nowhere, and they had just gotten them. And they called the vet, and they figured out, probably from some investigating, looking into the outside, the external factors, but it was from someone in the house had heated a non-stick skillet too high, because they come with warnings or, instructions that say do not use over high heat, and if you do use it over any heat, you're not supposed to preheat it empty. It has to have oil in it, and then you preheat it. Otherwise, it'll blister. It'll get into your food.
And be very dangerous. So the whole point, the reason why I wanted to bring that story up, imagine what it did to these birds. Imagine over a long period of time what it can do to us if we're not careful about it, right? That was the point of. Did you?
It proves that it's a chemical. It's a
yeah.
chemical in the air, and
Yeah.
that's not necessary. That's something that we can control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you said that the vet actually.
It was
said
common. Yeah, I don't think it was.
It was
this
a nonstick pan.
Yeah, I think this was
common-
something they had heard of before.
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously we've come so far, with technology, but there are drawbacks, and we have to realize that, I think nonstick pans are kind of a recent, technology anyway. So we have to realize they're not perfect, and and also they were invented probably so that people wouldn't have to use as much oil.
Yeah.
So.
Easier to clean.
You know what?
Exactly.
Speaking of oil, what is your opinion on those spray oils? I don't use them, so I don't know what they're called. But Pam,
Like
what
spray
is-
oils.
Yeah, what is your opinion on that?
Well, it's tricky because the spray oils will say fat-free, but if you, besides possible the chemicals in there and the aerosol, it'll say fat-free, but if you read between the lines, it says it's fat-free if you only spray it 5 times. And then because they're allowed to say fat-free when something is less than 3 grams of fat or low fat. So if you follow the serving size, then yes, you're getting a very small amount of fat. But if you were just going to use it to spray a pan or to cook with, and you can use more.
But why not just? I've never used those. Why not? Extra virgin olive oil is so healthy for you.
Right.
It does.
Well, they make them in the spray. Extra
But so
virgin
what is
olive
Or
the
you can
point?
buy those
I was just about to
What
say
is the
those.
point
Yeah,
of
you can get
using
your
that
own there.
instead of like the just the bottle of the extra virgin olive oil? I guess so that you don't use too much. Is that
Portion
the point?
control.
Spare,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
But like Lisa said, I just saw a new one. This company came out with a new one. You can buy sprays like at Williams Sonoma or Sur La Table, where cooking supply stores, and they either are spray, kind of not non-aerosol, but then they make ones where there's a pump and it creates
I
an
have
aerosol
one.
effect. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
I
want to get
use
one.
it.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
So
What I do with it is I use it just for convenience. Like if I'm roasting a turkey, I spray the olive oil on
Oh,
there
okay.
and then put the seasoning on top. It's
Okay.
just
you don't have to get your hands dirty, also, right?
right.
I like
it's
to
just-
get my hands dirty.
That is
Yeah,
fun.
I'm not a gourmet cook, so.
I was trying to be funny. It's actually kind of.
I like
So,
doing that.
For the longest time,
afterward.
just as a side note, if my husband's listening to this, he'll actually get a kick out of this. I had read so many books when I was in college on animal liberation was one of them, all sorts of things. I could not even. There was many years that I couldn't eat meat at all. And then once I started again, I couldn't touch it, so I had to put gloves on to touch raw meat because I just couldn't. So it really is funny to actually talk about touching it because it took me a long
That's
time.
why you need to get the pump.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll get her one
And
for
just
present.
spray it on.
But just to get back to olive oil for a second, do you? I have to share this because, people are always talking. People are always asking, what's the secret to anti-aging? What's the secret? What are some thoughts on, how to look younger? Extra virgin olive oil, a tablespoon a day will actually help keep you looking younger. Have you ladies heard of that? Or did I just make that up? No, I'm just kidding.
I've heard it from you.
Yeah. But it's definitely monounsaturated fats are great because, we do need fat in the diet. So, what is, would be optimal is if people would switch, not add it to their, high-fat diet, but to switch over.
Okay.
In order to save, the calories.
Yeah.
It's a great source of, of fats and fatty acids, and we do need fat in the diet. So,
what were there any? Since we're talking about news stories of the week, was there anything that you wanted to bring up that you heard about this week, Lisa? Anything new and interesting in the health world?
let's think.
I know there's a lot of restaurants opening up, and they're just focusing more on vegetarianism. They're calling them vegivores or something instead of vegetarian.
Oh, that's
because it's
great.
people who eat meat, but they eat it more as like a
side
treat.
dish.
Exactly. No, the vegetable is like the main dish. It's the star. It's
Yeah.
it's served as the
Yeah.
center of the plate, and meat is just a garnish. Not a
Yeah.
garnish, but a flavor additive. Or
Weren't you saying that Mario Batali just started a Meatless Mondays?
yeah, you had
I
heard
love
of it
that.
too. Meatless Mondays.
Yeah.
It's like a public initiative.
And they're doing it in a lot of the restaurants you
Tons.
said in
Great.
New York.
Yeah, and really famous chefs who are really well respected. So people, no matter what their lifestyle, will go to those restaurants.
Yeah.
And they're not even aware that they're. I actually heard of something that was really. I hate those news stories that make you paranoid about like the government. I hate that because I don't. It's like ignorance is bliss. But I think Domino's started this new initiative because they were doing really poorly. Which I mean, this fast food. I mean, too late. They were doing really poorly. Their sales were down, especially. I think people are obviously responding. High fructose corn syrup. They want to change the name to corn sugar. So people are,
Right.
they're panicking. So
Yeah.
Domino's
There she goes.
collaborated with what's it called? Oh my God, what's that?
That's right.
Okay.
A
This-
pizza company.
This pizza company, you know what? Honestly, I'm not even sure if it's them. It might be some other.
Yeah.
But they collaborated with a dairy farm, this like local kind of like mom and pop dairy farm, and they're claiming, and I'm assuming it's true, that all their cheese comes from this one dairy farm. So it's not pasteurized, and it's hormone free, and it's this like fresh, really good cheese. But they're adding even more cheese to the pizza, so quantity-wise, so health-wise it's fresher, but quantity-wise it's worse.
Yeah.
And long story short, this farm is subsidized by the government, and the government is endorsing this. So they're endorsing pizza, and they're endorsing fast food pizza, which is really high in saturated fat, and they're also on this other side
Yeah.
fighting the fight against obesity, and
Right.
they're having all these public initiatives and all these things, so they're like playing both sides, which is kind of confusing.
Right.
That is interesting. I mean, that's if and we talk about this constantly, but it's not if we decrease the quantity of everything, I even say to people, one slice of pizza is not so horrible. 5 slices of pizza, on the other hand, I don't know
Right.
how many calories. I know we were talking about calories earlier, but calories, the fat, in the pizza. But if you want, you can have it's like ice cream.
Half
pizza.
a cup.
I'm going to ignore that.
You know, I always say when you know, when I'm counseling, and they give me their 24-hour recall, if they have pizza and they'll say, you know, I had 3 slices. I always say, you know what? Why don't you have 1 slice? Even most pizza places have salad, and order a side salad, because you can eat as many vegetables, pardon me, as you want, as long as they're, you know, the non-starchy vegetables. And, you know, it's not going to cause a weight problem. Of course, you need to, you know, you can't use a cream salad dressing. You know, you should use, you know, balsamic oil and a balsamic vinaigrette and olive oil as, you know, dressing. In most places will have that. And then you're full, you know, you don't have to have that much pizza. Do you know what I mean?
But can we talk about dressings just for 1 second, since you brought that up?
Sure.
Store-bought dressings or dressings used in some restaurants, some fast food places. Those dressings have more calories than most people ever realize. More fat, more dressing. I mean, more fat, more calories, and more chemicals than most people ever realize. So you are better off foregoing the dressing and asking for a side of just plain balsamic and plain, because I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'll have the balsamic." It has terrible things in it. It has terrible things in it, and that balsamic dressing, 1 tablespoon, could cost you.
Balsamic vinaigrette.
Balsamic vinaigrette could cost
As
you
a dressing.
400 calories.
Right.
Right?
And all of your
Yes.
daily sugar.
And
I'm
all
sure.
of your daily sugar, and unfortunately some really bad chemicals and preservatives.
Well, it depends, though. I mean, wherever
It
you are.
depends.
If you're at
I know it
an
depends.
upscale restaurant, they might be
Oh,
making it
absolutely.
themselves with
Absolute-
herbs
yes.
and oil. And
Yes.
So a good thing to do would just be to ask. You know,
Or
you could ask, or just
Yes.
get oil and vinegar.
But and hopefully when you're at home, you know, take a minute to make your own.
I sent you a few of those dressings. I got most of them from this other woman I worked for.
Yeah.
She has 2 kids, a husband, like 8 pets, and she would whip this up, and it was so fast, and I, you know, immediately started doing it because
Yeah.
a standard dressing, 3-4 ingredients, is amazing.
Yeah.
And
A little Dijon, a little honey, you know, Dijon mustard, honey, balsamic, sea salt, fresh ground pepper, and then extra virgin olive oil.
and some isolated lemon.
That's
juice,
right, or
yeah.
lemon, or, you know, add a little thyme. You can. It just takes 1 minute to just shake it up by yourself with a fork,
Absolutely.
and it's the best thing that you can do,
And it's cheaper, too.
and it's
And
cheaper.
it lasts longer, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
There's
Yeah.
that facade that those, you know, these fast food places put up of, you know, now we have healthy options of salads. And without the dressing, probably
It is.
very minimal in terms of calories, but
When comparing
Well,
to
those
other-
packages, those,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
plastic little I mean,
Let's just touch on the salad for just a second. When they say salads, I don't know if people realize that what's in those salads are not exactly filled with nutrients.
Well, it
You know,
depends on, you know.
It depends. You
what
have
you
to look
get.
at the salad. I mean,
Right.
It's not,
A
you know.
salad, just because it has lettuce in it, if it has bacon bits, and
Or if it's iceberg lettuce, which
Right.
is
Right.
iceberg does
zero.
have some,
Some
yeah, it has
nutritional
some
value.
nutritional value.
not as
but-
much as your romaine or your
Right.
arugula. I mean, the more colorful the vegetable, the more
Yeah.
nutrients it has.
Yeah.
But I always say, when someone puts, you know, says, "Oh, I had a salad," and you know they're very excited to tell me about it. If they used a cream dressing, I tell them, "Well, you know, it's like putting ice cream on your salad. You
Oh, I never
had
thought about that.
you
It's a
had
really
a
good
salad
idea.
with ice cream, with a scoop of ice cream in it."
Yeah.
And so, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I want to thank you ladies for joining me today. It was a pleasure, and hopefully everyone got some very valuable information. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.